Tropical development chances are going higher, which is going to bring some heavy rain and wind to some of our area. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi everyone, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. Good to see you on this Thursday. I hope you're doing well. Coming up in this video, we've got our areas of tropical potential development. In one of those areas with a little bit higher chance than even yesterday, we've got our tropical waves coming into the Caribbean. We want to highlight as well. As some of you probably noticed, I did put another video up a little bit earlier today, which unfortunately had a technical error. We didn't have any audio on that. I apologize for that. Still wanted to make a video today, put a lot of work into it here. It's going to be a little bit of a pared down video, but we're going to definitely highlight what is the key elements of the forecast across our area here for not only the next 5 days, but we have to really look at the tropical potential as well. As we get started, I do appreciate your support here at Meteo Mundo, and thank you so much for clicking that like button right now. We'll get into the very active weather, and we'll start again in the Northwest Bahamas. We have our invest area, our spin, coming off of the Florida East Coast. Now, south of that low is where we've had all of the very heavy rain, and I mean, it has been flooding rains for a lot of South Florida, including the Miami metro area. Really big problems there. We've had waves of heavier rains across the Northwest Bahamas, and that continues again on this early evening Thursday here. You can see from Walker's Key to Grand Bahama, portions of Bimini, now right on over the Abaco area, Andros and New Providence and Eleuthera, all getting hefty showers and storms, and these storms are quite prominent. First thing they're going to do is produce some heavy rain, a lot of lightning. Got to watch out for the gusty winds and even some water spouts as well. That's what it looks like. Light data. We'll actually take a look at the radar data as well. And again, these are potent storms, high lightning count. You can see our live lightning data here at Meteo Mundo. So from Freeport, Lucaya, west into Alistown, San Andros, Nassau, Paradise Island, Marsh Harbor, really nasty storm over Abaco right now. I mean, this is an intense storm. And again, this is the loop over the last 6 hours, but look here. I mean, you've got basically 100 lightning strikes right over the island. So rough weather. The opportunity for some flash flooding. There is a flood watch for the Northwest Bahamas that stays in effect until tomorrow morning. There's still going to be some rain around tomorrow, but my thought is that the most intense activity will be winding down, but still some very hefty rain there. Now, just to the north, I want to talk about that potential development area. First of all, noting the area of low pressure moving off of the east coast of the Florida. But really, I want to focus in on this area right here because there's a little bit of a twist right now. Look, the Hurricane Center is putting a 20% chance of development in this region. I don't want to discount it fully, and I'm going to show you why coming up right now, because there's going to be a narrow window of opportunity of development in this region. So we're going to slip on over here to our HER model. It's the high resolution rapid refresh model here, a North American model, which is really, really good. I'm going to get rid of all the other stuff here so we can take a look at it. I'm going to get rid of the lightning data. I'm going to get rid of the satellite data. So you're going to see this loop up, okay? If we're going to get a subtropical storm of some kind, or a weak tropical depression, or maybe even a named tropical storm, but that's the lowest chance out of those that I just mentioned, it's going to happen in the next 24 to 36 hours, basically off of the Carolina coastline. You can see an opportunity for a brief spin up. Now, the HER model and the GFS model in general keep this as somewhat of an open system, more elongated. It's still fighting some shear and dry air, especially on the western side, but there is going to be that narrow window of opportunity. Now, this will stay to the west of Bermuda. All right, this is not going to be direct impact for Bermuda, but again, I don't want to fully discount this because you saw the HER model, and this is the European model. This is the European global model, which shows you that late tomorrow night, a cluster of lows on the ensemble product here, meaning a closed circulation just off of the North Carolina coastline. So the European model is actually fairly aggressive for a brief window of trying to develop a closed low. So we'll see how this plays out. Again, it's going to happen very quickly, or it's not going to happen at all. For reference, there is Bermuda, and then it gets up the east coast of the United States and into some cooler water, and whatever it would be would dissipate from there. But again, as it gets through these Gulf Stream waters, very warm water, relatively limited shear at this point in time on the central and the eastern sides. So there's an opportunity to see a spin up there. Now there's a much better chance, I think, in the southwest Gulf of Mexico next week, and we'll highlight that coming up. Other areas that have been very active for today, and I'm glad I discounted the GFS model yesterday, because right now we've had a very wet day through the Cayman Islands. Yes, it is beginning to wind down, but Grand Cayman, Little Cayman, Cayman Brac, all with some very hefty rain again. You live in this area, let me know what you've been seeing, but this moisture plume has been really situated over your area the majority of the day. We've had some passing showers across Jamaica as well. It has been more progressive, meaning these downpours have been moving pretty quickly, but we've caught some rain today, especially on the eastern side of the island, a little bit later in the afternoon. Opportunities for like Ocho Rios and Mandeville and Maypen, Old Harbor, Portmore, Spanish Town, Kingston, and Port Antonio, but these are fast moving. So again, could still produce some heavy rain in bursts. It's just not going to sit over one area for very long, but Jamaica will still have that opportunity. Now you get east, and it's really more about the heat and an isolated storm chance for the Dominican Republic and Haiti. We're seeing a few isolated storms right now, but the other big story has really been the heat as well. Temperatures on the board right now are still well into the 90s Fahrenheit, and then feels like numbers when it's not raining, 105, 110 plus. We had a storm over Santo Domingo, the area, you can see that drop down too, but isolated in nature, and when it's not raining in Hispaniola, it's outright hot. It's going to be the same situation for Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. We had a few storms towards Ponce and Yauco and Mayaguez earlier in the afternoon. Those now pushed offshore. It's been very hot and dry in places like San Juan and Charlotte-Amalie and Christiansted there in St. Croix. Very, very dry, relatively speaking. Excessive heat warning. Please be very careful in the afternoon hours. And a bit of Saharan dust also trying to come back into play. This is about the same scenario for our friends in the northern side of the Leeward Islands as well. Again, St. Martin had a feels like temperature of 108. We've caught a couple of brief showers, but they've been very, very almost pinpoint. Little shower went over Antigua earlier today, but that wasn't for the entire island. That was just a little brief spot on the western side. Now you get to Guadeloupe and Dominica and Martinique, and it's a very interesting feature here. There's moisture coming back in west to east from the Eastern Caribbean, and we'll talk more about that coming up, but it has provided a few showers and if nothing else, some cloud coverage. But again, few showers for Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique, down towards St. Lucia. You get to St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Barbados. We're basically dry. Same thing for Grenada, Trinidad, Tobago. Trinidad, a few showers of trying to lift north from the mainland. An isolated shower, an isolated storm there. Better chance for rain. Places like Guyana, Suriname, on over towards Venezuela. Over to the ABC Islands. Now, you guys are just on the south side of this weak feature. Do you see this little path of moisture right there? Let me show the water vapor imagery. It's really, really interesting feature. So you have this moisture elongated west to east that's trying to drift to the ABC Islands. The air actually north of there is exceptionally dry outside of the storms that developed on the islands and then pushed off towards the south. A little bit of kink in the cloud coverage right here, and then you get into the southwest Caribbean and areas west where it is so darn moisture laden right now. And again, it's not horrible news for the areas that are still desperate for more rain, but this is going to be our very active area. We still have our Central American gyre in place, meaning that this broad spin is still circulating around. The amount of tropical moisture is insane, and these storms are just flaring up very prominently. Look what's happening right now over the Yucatan as we head towards sunset. Big blow up of showers and storms. They had a morning round. They got hot. Feels like temperatures well above 110. And then these storms have blown right back up. We've had good rain over portions of Belize, and we're not done. We're building in this rain right now across the area. It's gotten really, really hefty through portions of Honduras. Look at all of the storms here. And this is not just something that's going to last the next day or two. We are in for a very active pattern here over the next week, maybe even 2 weeks. So we're talking about some drought busting kind of rains here in some areas. And it's not about just what we get in one day, it's the accumulation of this. And again, there are many more days of potentially very wet weather for Central America and the Yucatan to come. Let's get into the forecast here. We're going to do that. And as you do so, and as I do so, if you could do so, hitting the like button. And if you want to become a subscriber to Meteo Mundo and get your latest forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, click that subscribe button right now. I absolutely appreciate you. So we're going to take a look at the GFS model here, and we're going to pull it out 5 days, and then we'll look at the island by island rain outlook, and then the extended outlook for the rest of the tropics. So here's how this is going to play out over the next 5 days. We're going to see, again, whatever develops along the United States East Coast, if it does, quickly move away. This will bring more rain and wind to Bermuda starting tomorrow over the next couple of days. Places like the Northwest and Central Bahamas will dry out over the weekend, but for Nassau and Freeport, still some good downpours and storms tomorrow, maybe even on Saturday. It's been spottier in nature all period long for the Central Bahamas, but you could still get some downpours tomorrow. But again, generally not enough for any flooding threats. The farther south that you go into the Southeast Bahamas and the Turks and the Caicos, it's drier. Cuba will continue to see some showers and storms for the next 48 hours, but they begin to dry out a bit as well. Now, the GFS model I've mentioned is just too dry in places like the Cayman Islands and Jamaica. I'll show you the NAM model coming up, but the bottom line is, even though the GFS is too dry over the next few days, look at this little flare up of moisture from the Southwest Caribbean. It drives back into Central America. It's unbelievable the repetition of moisture and spin ups that we're going to get to continue to provide this extremely wet, active pattern in those areas. We're going to get some Saharan dust coming into the Greater and Lesser Antilles. And again, that's going to be part of the reason why we're limited for storm chances for the next several days for places like Santo Domingo and San Juan and Roadtown and all the British and U.S. Virgin Islands. You're looking at about a 20% chance for storms, mainly with the heat of the day popping up, but many dry hours and locations. That's also the same forecast from our friends in the Lesser Antilles as well, from Anguilla to St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, Antigua, Barbuda, Dominica, Martinique, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Generally speaking, drier. Now, we do get into this area, let's say about Martinique south, and the next tropical wave coming in late weekend, early next week, will at least provide the chance for a little bit more rain. But these tropical waves are still very moving south in latitude. They're mainly slamming into South America. And although when I zoom out, you're going to see more tropical waves here coming through, there's also that drier air and that Saharan dust that, even though these waves look prominent in the open Atlantic right now, as they get closer to our area, they may not have as much of a impact as you think because of that Saharan dust and some other factors as well. But again, all bets are off in the western areas, guys. Look just how outrageously wet this is going to be. So we continue with the broad spin, but then there's going to be smaller circulations that we'll have to look out for. One in the Eastern Pacific and one eventually in the southwest side of the Gulf of Mexico, but ample moisture to say the least in this area. So again, if you still need some more rain in that area, at least I can tell you that the opportunity is going to be sticking around, again, not only for a few days, but for maybe a couple of weeks. I mean, legitimately the next 10 to 14 days look very wet through these areas. This is the NAM model. And again, just to highlight that the Cayman Islands and Jamaica are going to be a little bit wetter than what the GFS showed. Okay, so it's not going to surprise me if you get some decent downpours in these areas. Watch out for a few lightning strikes. You're not in the prime location, but you are close enough to it to continue to get your daily rain chances. Now, again, one reason why we're going to have a little bit lower rain chance, the Saharan dust. Now, that's for our eastern areas. Look at these plumes coming in over the next 10 days. Some of this will drag all the way through the Yucatan and the Gulf, but it's dispersing as it does so. Those brighter colors to the Lesser and the Greater Antilles, again, will suppress some of the moisture from the next couple of tropical waves. So, and you can really see that in the Windward Islands. So even though this next tropical wave is coming in, it's going to be fighting dry air as it does so. So haze will be in the sky. Obviously, if you have respiratory issues, that could be an issue. But again, it's going to limit some of the rain from the next couple of tropical waves out there. So breaking down your rain chance, island by island, Northwest Bahamas, still fairly wet. Obviously, the remainder of today, overnight through Friday, drying out Saturday and drier early next week. Central and Southeast Bahamas will still see some scattered downpours, but those become more isolated by Saturday. Not much rain for the Turks of the Caicos. Cuba, better rain chances, western and central sides of the island. Cayman Islands, around a 50% chance each day. Look, there's going to be some storms around for you guys, whether it hits your particular area. Again, that's kind of a toss-up, but the moisture is going to be there. Belize City, Cancun, and Cozumel, this could be a little bit conservative. Really, these numbers will more than likely be higher, which of course is great news. news. Jamaica will continue to see some scattered showers. Could be a little lull in the action for you guys over the weekend, and then more moisture coming your way early next week. Again, it's a fairly dry forecast and drying out even more for the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands over the weekend. Bermuda's rain chances will be fairly high, be a bit of wind up there as well. St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Martin, around a 20% chance. Same thing for Antigua and Barbuda, Martinique, Barbados, with the next tropical wave coming in. Barbados south, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, slightly higher rain chance. Trinidad and Tobago, Saturday, even a few more showers in Trinidad and Tobago tomorrow. Not looking bad in Guyana. Again, rain chances going higher. And unfortunately, our friends in the ABC Islands do stay relatively dry. Just look again at these wave heights and directions. And the Pacific, I mean, you're talking about double-digit waves. We're going to have some areas in green here in the Caribbean, which is more than 8-foot waves, central western sides. Notice how the arrows are going in all different directions from the Pacific to the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. That's your broad spin sitting right over Central America. And I think we're going to freshen up some of the waves near Bermuda later next week. Okay, let's get back over to the extended forecast here. A couple of things I want to show you guys with this. First thing I'm going to do is we'll go back over to the GFS, and I'm going to take this out about a week. So we're going to go out about a week, and I'm going to loop this up. And then we're going to look at how this kind of plays out in the extended, but how our waves coming through the Eastern Caribbean will contribute to this overall very, very active pattern for us here. Again, if we get anything on the East Coast, it's going to happen quickly. But there's a few interesting features to highlight in the Western Atlantic as well. So again, just looking at this area, guys, it looks like a rainforest. I mean, it's just crazy how much rain is being driven in with this broad cyclonic spin. But we do get kind of smaller areas of spin up here. But again, for the Yucatan and Belize and Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Costa Rica and Panama, just a really wet forecast. And we'll look at the potential rainfall totals coming up as well, but they're all extremely impressive in this area. So you can see the reflectivity. Now let's take a look at the spin in the atmosphere as well. So when I look at this product, I'm looking at the spin at the lower levels of the atmosphere, not at the surface, but it does give me areas that I should be focusing in on, and you should be as well, for potential development. Now, we can clearly see the GFS picking up on that twist early to mid next week, right about here. Basically, that energy coming off of the Yucatan spins up. The GFS does take it pretty quickly into Mexico. There's other areas of interest as well. You can see on the southwest side of the Caribbean, we get this spin. That's what's going to bring more rain to Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, and that gets wrapped up into that system. Nice little interesting feature kind of going the wrong way here, if you will, in the Western Atlantic here. Might be underneath that ridge of high pressure, but there's a lot of features to be monitoring, especially in this part of the world coming up. Now, again, not much twist out here because we're fighting the drier air still, okay? And it's about trying to get actually rain into the Lesser Antilles and the Greater Antilles again from some of those tropical waves, but they're going to be fighting that dry air. When we take a look at the wind gusts, and I loop this up, again, another indication of where we might have some spin and just how strong those winds might be as well. So going to let that loop up for us here. And again, over the next 7 days. So a couple of features we can pick up here on the GFS, first of all, when we get back to the beginning of this loop. And there's that other feature coming in right there. But we'll see here, and I'll stop it real quick. We'll see it doesn't really wrap up anything. It's a little bit more elongated. But again, the European model is a little bit more optimistic about that. But we could not get anything out of it at all. It could just be a nice little slice of wind. It stays mainly just west of Bermuda. But more interesting features on the back end of this, you can see again this twist right here, but it's mainly going up towards the north. There's just a little bit more spin in the atmosphere there, but then all bets are off here, guys. Again, we can continue to see this one. That energy gets thrown into there, and there's your spin up right there in the southwest Gulf of Mexico. So that's why this area is now orange. The Hurricane Center has it at a 40% chance of development over the next 7 days. And you can see that spin right there to be watching. So that's one. The one in the Eastern Pacific is one as well. Just a ton of energy overall with the winds. If I show you one more thing here, because I like to keep you guys informed. If I go over to the surface winds, these are 10-meter winds. We're about 30 feet up in the atmosphere. The biggest thing is that there's going to be a lot of wind through the Caribbean here in general over the next week ahead, okay? And boy, I hope this thing is going to load up. All right, here we go. So all the way from the Lesser Antilles through the ABC Islands, very windy, and then right up the Caribbean coastline of Central America. Purples, we get to 15, 20 knots. We get into the whites, we're getting closer to 30 here. So again, this is a lot of wind, and that's a very interesting feature that tries to wrap up there in the southwest Bahamas. A lot of energy, a lot of activity, Gulf, central and western sides of the Caribbean over the next several days. Now, take a look at this. This is the European model, pressure plots again. Look at the left-hand side of your screen, top right-hand side, you're gonna see the date. So this will start to loop from Monday until Thursday of next week, and look at all of those loads. Again, the ensemble product, there's 50 of them, so we look at them at one time frame from jump to jump. They're gonna be in different locations and different strengths, but the more that you see, the more confident the model is that there actually is gonna be an area of low pressure. And it's fairly significant in the southwest Gulf of Mexico, starting late Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, kind of slower development. So that's the next area to monitor once the system pulls off the east coast of the United States. And again, the European model is relatively aggressive with that. Let's take a look at some rainfall totals, guys. And again, this is just going to be over the next 5 days. Just going to highlight a couple of spots for us here. And again, I hope my pointer system works, but this is additional rain from what we've already seen. Now, this will encompass today's rain because we're so late in the day, and the model does encompass the rain that we've already seen this afternoon. But you can see, you know, getting another 2 to 4 inches of rain for Abaco and Grand Bahama and Walker's Key and, you know, New Providence, that could be significant. Please watch out for the flooding there. If you live in that area, drop a comment below. Let me know what you've been seeing. Western Cuba could see some heavier rain as well. And then all bets are off through Central America, guys. I mean, just take a look at some of the rainfall totals. And once again, the model could be underdoing it a bit, but you get into Belize, and the model's now painting on in just the next 5 days, 4-5 inches of rain. This is an area that could still use a lot more rain. We'll cross our fingers. Everything I see appears to be very wet there again, not only just over the next 5 days, but for a week or two to come. And we just follow this across Central America. Significant heavy rain along the Pacific coastline, but Panama and Costa Rica are very wet as well. Again, the GFS model will underdo the rain, as I mentioned, in the Cayman Islands and Jamaica, so not as much there. But you get the idea that it's just more spotty through Hispaniola and Puerto Rico. If we catch any areas more than a ½ inch to an inch of rain over the next 5 days, that's not bad as an average. Trinidad could be a little bit wetter closer to the mainland, but again, you know, even you got to get kind of deeper into South America here, just not along the immediate coastline, to get some of those heftier totals. The ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, very little rain. If I zoom this out, and just to show you Bermuda real quickly as well here, guys, again, maybe a little bit more than that, but the actual direct impacts, even if that doesn't develop, is going to be west of that area. You get the broad view of the rain from the GFS model, okay? Wet out west, drier east. The European model, it is basically the same. Obviously, some of the totals are going to differ, but significant rain, more than a foot through portions of Central America, Southwest Gulf. You follow the warm current through the Gulf Stream here, through South Florida and the Northwest Bahamas. And again, the Lesser Antilles, most of the Greater Antilles, drier as we go over the next 7 days. Not completely dry, but the pattern has changed, and I've been mentioning that as well. So we'll be watching our western sides, not only for some potential tropical development, but obviously for more heavy rain on a daily basis. Friends, I'll keep you up to date here, but you can also find us across all social media: Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, mymediamundo@gmail.com. You want to send me a picture or a video, love to hear from you guys. Drop it in the comments section below. You got a question about the forecast, you can ask me there as well. Thank you so much for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing. You have a great rest of your Thursday, and I will see you tomorrow right here, friends, at Meteo Mundo.